Good evening. Welcome to this virtual green room with Marc-André Hamelin. We're so happy to have you here and all the listeners as well. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to you, Marc-André. Thank you. Where are you physically, by the way?
Vancouver, Canada.
Oh, you're in Vancouver. Great. You'll be returning there in a few days to play the Rhapsody in Blue. Is that right?
Well, funnily enough, I'll be returning to Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, you're in Vancouver, BC,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
the Northwest conundrum of which Vancouver do we mean?
Yeah. They've never been in the same tour, so that's a novelty for me.
Oh, good. Long before we scheduled this interview, I had an encounter with you online, which I wanted to start with. And I was scrolling around as one does on the internet and came across this piece of clickbait. Super Virtuoso breaks down 9 impossible piano pieces. I take it you remember that.
Yeah, it's become ubiquitous, of course. All it was really, it was an episode from the Tone-Based series,
Hmm.
and the host Ben Lowdy just asked me about certain passages from some uh, some difficult. I hate to use the word piano pieces. You know, the ones that make everyone's hair stand on end. Pianists. And just asked me to discuss certain passages, but it wasn't my idea. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into.
It did.
I wouldn't have willingly discussed these things. Not that I minded, because I played the game and it was wonderful.
Well, you were very gracious at being ambushed, but I, actually, the format aside, I did think it was a way of diving into some interesting things that you raised there. The first piece he gave you was the fugue from Hammerklavier, which he'll be playing just a few days from now here at Davies Hall in San Francisco. And you said something interesting about that it enlists the weak finger in a way that other pieces don't, or other parts of that piece don't. I wonder if you could elaborate on that a bit.
Well, the bottom line is that Beethoven wrote it just like a string writing, with very, very little, if any, consideration for pianistic comfort. He was writing what he wanted, what he thought, what came to him, and more and more as he progressed in his life, he worried less and less about how easy or how difficult it would be instrumentally. So, in particular, in the case of this fugue, uh, you have to, as a pianist, display a lot of ingenuity because you have to refinger everything. Because if you played it literally like it's on the page, I mean, it's impossible. It would be impossible. So you have to give a lot of attention to different hand distribution. So which hand plays what? Uh, and it's especially terrifying in the last 5 pages or so. There's a great deal of activity for about 5 minutes, and then there's a lull. It's a little bit like the eye of the hurricane. Just 3 or 4 lines of music which are really peaceful and really offer a great contrast. And then the activity starts again, and especially in that section, he asks a lot of the right hand, um, and it's always very polyphonic, and it's that alone makes it difficult to play with any strength.
Mm.
So you have to be very, very careful. I mean, you could easily get tendonitis from practicing that thing. I mean, it's um, so. Uh, well, that's really what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. Do different pianists have different weak fingers as it's I've
Well,
sometimes heard
the recognized as the weak fingers are really the third, fourth, and fifth,
third,
especially.
fourth, and fifth.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, and he does give a lot of material to that, without any concession whatsoever to comfort.
Yeah, Jeremy Denk told me in an interview once that he wanted to mutiny his fourth finger on I don't remember which hand it was, but it was particularly troubling for him. I'm wondering, remarking on Beethoven having less and less regard for how playable things were. Do you think his advancing deafness had anything to do with that?
I don't. No, I don't think so.
No?
Because he was already quite deaf. In his during his middle period, which really was still rather comfortable pianistically.
Mm,
So I don't think it has any
mm, mm,
relation.
mm,
It was just that he was less and less willing to be compromising
mm,
his artistic
mm,
vision.
mm.
That's really how I think about it.
The next piece that you were dealt was a page from the Concord Sonata, Ives's Concord Sonata,
Mhm.
which you had a great remark about it. You said he had no regard, like Beethoven, I guess, for pianistic difficulty, which you said you found quite refreshing.
In what sense?
That that you said that Ives's disregard for pianistic difficulty was something that you found rather refreshing that he would place that challenge in front of.
What what was I on when I said that?
Well, the other interesting thing that you said about that is that you committed this piece to memory when you were 13, if I got that right.
No, no, no. That's an exaggeration. I first heard it when I was 13. It
Mm,
was John Kirkpatrick's second recording, which was
mm.
actually the first record I ever bought for myself. Actually,
Uh, uh,
uh,
a
I
vinyl, of course.
oh yeah, yeah.
Mm,
I got interested in Ives because at the time my dad was subscribing to Clavier magazine, which it doesn't exist anymore.
mm,
And there was in October '74 there was a special Ives centennial issue, and there were several articles in there, and frequent references to the Concord Sonata, of course. And I was very intrigued. And the local shopping mall had a tiny record shop, and they happened to have it.
mm, mm,
So I couldn't resist. I had a little I was starting to have a little pocket money back then. So
mm.
I gave it a shot, and I wasn't the same. I haven't been the same since. It was
Since seven.
a startling discovery.
Yeah. When did you
But
start?
I didn't start trying to play it right away. Of course, that was
Mm,
absurd. Although I did perform it in my master's recital at
mm,
university.
mm, mm.
The first time.
Um, uh, you also said in that interview that it was something you wouldn't try committing it to memory now, which raises the issue about age and memory and how that has played out for you. You're in your prime in your 60s now. Are you a different kind of memorist now than you were 20, 30 years ago?
Well, it's 50 years on, it's a little bit more difficult to commit things to memory, and
Mhm.
have them stay there is even more of a challenge. Uh, but I don't worry about that so much anymore because it's perfectly possible. Some people don't think so, but it's perfectly possible to play with a score and still experience the same freedom, the same essential quality of what you are performing, and to live the music as you're performing it totally. If you
Mm.
know how to use a score, of course. I tend to use the score more for reference, actually, when I
I wondered
have
about that.
when I have
Well,
of course, the pieces that I learned early on that I've been playing all my life, I don't need a score for them. Of course, I never have. But more recent learned pieces, I definitely need the score in front of me.
has the iPad score made that easier than having someone sitting at your shoulder and turning pages?
It's a godsend because uh, I had been wanting to use the iPad for quite a long time, except that they never made one that was big enough for my eyesight.
Ah,
As soon as they did, I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. The problem with having a page turner is that I really consider uh, a recital as a one-to-one intimate communication between me and
mm,
the audience.
mm,
I am imparting a narrative. I'm imparting an artistic vision. I'm imparting ideas and just compositional miracles. And as soon as there is somebody else on stage, it takes you. I think it takes the audience away from from the story. I mean, just to say it simplistically, and it looks more like a job, like I'm performing a job.
It does,
And
and
there's also another factor is that if you play with the score, you have to have the uh, the music rack in front of you, and that hides from me a substantial portion of the sound.
I,
You can you can experience that very easily if you play for just play anything with one hand and then raise and raise and lower the music rack, and you'll see that there's a very great difference in what comes to you. And when you're playing the piano, what you or any instrument for that matter, your playing will depend uh, in a large part on what is coming back to you orally. So if your perspective is falsified by the presence of the music rack, then you're not getting the true image of what you're producing.
do you ever? I haven't seen this much recently. I remember. I think Horowitz used to do this in halls where he sold out that there were people sitting on the stage,
Mm-hmm.
sort of around the piano. Has that been a format that you've used
Well,
at times?
it's happened to me a few times actually, and some halls permit it, others don't. I mean, it depends on what the maximum capacity can be,
Hmm.
but I love it because it means that the hall sold or oversold or whatever, and it's a fantastic compliment, and I find it really galvanizing.
You like that sort of sense of immediacy, that contact with the audience.
Yes, very
Mhm.
much.
Mhm. Does eye contact ever happen when you're in the midst of a?
Never.
Never.
Well, almost never, because our field of vision is somewhat limited, and
Yeah.
and I really tend to focus on what's there. I mean, there can be some remarkable things happening in the audience, and I won't be aware of them.
Like people mounting protest banners or things that have now entered the concert hall of late.
Too many wrong notes.
Right. Uh, you said of the Liszt Don Giovanni fantasy in this in this clickbait thing that I'm perhaps belaboring too much, that the Giovanni fantasy was maybe something that you had gotten too old for, which sort of raises the question about that. Are there pieces that you play in your youth? Sort of like reading Tom Wolfe or something. You can read them when you're in high school, but by the time you're in your 40s, maybe it'll feel a bit treacly and over the
Yeah.
top or something.
Well, it's not necessarily a question of not being able to or finding them passé or not as attractive. It's simply because the amount of piano literature that there is, and I'm not sure that even some pianists are aware of it, is it's a gargantuan literature. I mean, I have a friend in Germany who he's in his mid 80s now, but for a number of years, he's a retired school teacher. He has been amassing a collection of PDFs of rare piano music.
Hmm.
And, he's made it available to some collectors such as myself. And to date, there are 70,000 items in that.
Wow. Wow.
And I'm sure there's plenty more.
Wow.
So if you want to explore that kind of obscure literature, there's just no end to it. It's fantastic. Now,
Are there things that you have discovered sort of that were sitting sort of hiding in plain sight, as it were? Pieces that you had no suspicion of or no awareness of, and that you found them and said, this is really something. I want to play this. I want to perform this.
there have been, but in the majority of cases, there were already recordings of them.
Hmm?
So all I was doing, but I discovered them for myself, of course, but all I was doing was to maybe help them get more of a place in the public's consciousness or even pianists' consciousness, so that they could be performed more. And I hope that with all these dozens of recordings that I've produced, that I've made a little bit of a dent in that regard.
I believe 92 and counting is the number, unless
I
I'm
wasn't going
missing
to say it.
something, or if you stop counting yourself.
Unfortunately, no, I confess.
Good for
And
you.
you're right, it is 92.
Yeah. Are there things that go in and out of your repertoire, things that you
Oh, sure.
kind of revive? And what are some examples of that? What are some things that you've sort of rediscovered, as it were, and want to play in a different way, perhaps, or that you bring us different kind of feeling or
Well, one
to?
example is the piece that I'm playing these days, the Beethoven Sonata in C major, Opus 2, number 3, which is his third sonata.
Mhm.
Um, I I was actually assigned the fourth movement when I was maybe, I don't know, 10 or 11, something
Mm,
like that, and
mm,
I learned the rest by myself and just a tiny bit later.
mm,
But all of these years, I never played it.
mm.
And recently, during the last 3 or 4 years, I thought I would revisit it. I mean, the groundwork was already laid, of course, by learning it early, and by relearning it and exploring its possibilities, I just found a whole bunch of things uh, that I didn't suspect at that point, which can really make it come alive.
Mm, yeah.
So yeah, I
Mm.
mean, there are things that I learned early and then I took up again.
We'll move on to some other things in a moment, but there are well, this is actually quite relevant because you're going to be playing Gaspar de la Nuit here in San Francisco. And I've heard you elsewhere discuss how challenging this work in maybe ways that wouldn't, the obvious way is that Scarbo is a famously insanely difficult piece to play. And as you argue that pianists play it too fast sometimes. I thought of that. I heard a recording somewhere of you online. I forget where or how, where I noticed that even before you remarked on it, and I thought it's scarier and creepier if it's a little not just blasted out of the gun right from the get-go. I wonder if you talk about how you approach that famously
Well,
difficult work, but
first of all, if we just zero in on Scalbo for a minute, uh, unfortunately, it's not documented in print, but the French pianist Paul Doguereau, who was a friend of Ravel's and might have even studied with him, apparently said that what Ravel had in mind as far as tempo was something akin to the scherzo from Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream.
hmm.
And, of course,
Wow.
it's a vivace or whatever it is, but it's not.
Yeah.
And there is such harmonic detail and textural detail in that whole piece that you just can't appreciate it when the music is flying 150 miles an hour.
Hmm.
And something also that is never mentioned is that there are a lot. I mean, Ravel was born so close to Spain that he could almost smell it,
Hmm.
and there are a lot of
Hmm.
Spanish elements in that little piece,
Hmm.
as there are in many of his other works.
Hmm.
And again, if the tempo is too quick, you miss them. I mean, you can almost hear the flamenco sometimes. Of
Hmm.
course, this isn't about flamenco, but
Hmm.
it was still part of Ravel's vocabulary, and he used it. So you can't just gloss over it. I mean, the piece has become like most of the Chopin etudes. These things have become speed fests, and
Hmm.
it's like all these young pianists are out to outdo each other. I have to say, though, that listening to past performances that I've done of Gaspard de la Nuit, I was guilty of the same thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it took, I had to take a long look, several long looks at the piece to realize that I was really going into the wrong path.
What made you reconsider it? Hearing too many speed demons, or was it something in
Well, there was
you
that.
going back to the
But
score?
it was also Ravel's remark about the Midsummer Night's Dream scherzo
Mm,
that
mm,
really got me to question. And
mm,
uh, with the piece still being exciting, in a slower tempo, uh, it's just more understandable, and it's also maybe pianistically a little bit easier,
Mm,
which is a very important consideration in the
yeah,
case of this.
yeah, yeah.
Also, I should say that the first piece of this triptych, Ondine, it's generally uh, underestimated because it is also fantastically intricate. The first page, and I think I mentioned that in that
You do, yes.
it is. I mean, if you really don't have the right piano to have this irregular fluttering figure in the right hand triple piano,
Mm,
if the piano action doesn't really cooperate with you, it can make your hair stand on end in
yeah,
performance. So
becomes a blur pretty quickly,
once once you're past that point, it's a little better. I mean, I would never say the piece is easy by any means.
Yeah,
If you sort of go through that hurdle, it's and there are instances where you just get a piano that is completely cooperative in that regard, and then that really gives you wings for the rest of the piece.
yeah. Traveling as much as you do, I'm just looking at your 2025 2026 season. It gives me jet lag just to read it. I mean, you're going to be in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. It made me wonder what's the matter with Africa? Well, couldn't you get there as well? Or maybe you are going to Africa and it's just not, there wasn't
I don't think the
room.
market for classical music is really that big over there.
Maybe not.
I have been to South Africa though, a long time ago. I was
Huh?
they yeah I entered a piano competition there in back in
Huh?
'82.
Huh? Well, I mean, traveling so much, of course, you're encountering all sorts of instruments wherever you go.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me what you can do when you have an instrument that's just problematic in some way or another. Are there ways that you can compensate? Are there things that you can do? Do you need more rehearsal time on an instrument that's not maybe to your entirely to your liking?
Well, if you have a technician at your disposal, which is most of the time,
Hmm.
um, yeah, then you can talk to them and explain what you find wanting, and then
Hmm.
they'll fix it as best they can. It's contrary to public belief. It's not just tuning. Tuning is just part of it. I mean, the voicing is also very very important.
Hmm.
And if they can fix the actual action, also if there's some irregularities, that's also very very helpful.
That can be done in a relatively short period of time, in an afternoon or
It,
so.
it it depends on the problem really,
Hmm.
but also uh, there will be times where you have not, or you won't be able to talk to a technician. So I very much have built, and my colleagues too have had to. I've built over time a kind of a defense mechanism to be able to cope with these problems. Um, uh, I've had to become really, really an expert in all matters of touch, so that I can circumvent those problems. I mean, it's a little bit like developing a good immune system for anything that's going to any problem that's going to attack you.
I can imagine, yeah. Um, is this something that your colleagues talk about? Say, oh, watch out for that instrument in wherever in Australia or Austria or something. Say, it's known on the circuit, I take it.
Some of them, yeah. We have a
Hmm.
wonderful word in French. When we say that a piano is just like a piece of crap, and just it's clangy, whatever. We call it a casserole, which is like a pot, as in pots and pans,
Hmm.
a
That's
metallic
funny.
piece of nothing.
That's funny. What else is difficult about traveling or rewarding about traveling as much as you do?
Well, being in as good a shape as I can, of course, and that means getting an adequate amount of sleep. um, and dealing with jet lag, or learning to deal with jet lag, because there are ways. I mean,
Mm,
you're never completely. You've never. I don't think I've ever battled it completely, but I do have ways to deal with it more efficiently than I used to. um, I'm used to traveling to Europe, for example, or to the UK, and that's I can usually work the next day after I arrive.
You could write a best-selling book about how to beat jet lag.
I'm sure a lot of my colleagues could too, actually.
I'm sure they could. You mentioned your father a bit ago. He was an amateur pianist.
Yes.
You grew up in Montreal.
Mhm.
How important was that for you? How influential was that in your beginning that your dad
Well,
was at the keyboard?
well, I don't know whether I actually would have necessarily come to music if he hadn't been around,
Mm,
because uh, um, apparently, well, my mom and dad told me that whenever he was playing, well, sometimes I would just approach the keyboard, and I was maybe 4 years old, and
mm.
just stare at him open mouthed. So at one point, around the time that I turned 5, he asked me if I'd like lessons. So he started my sister and I together, but I was
Did he teach you at first?
yes, to a certain extent. Yeah, I
Hmm.
do list him as one of my teachers,
Hmm.
because he whenever he thought differently from my teachers, he wouldn't be shy to tell me so. So
Ah.
of course,
How
there's
quick
always room for interpretation. Yeah, and
yeah. How quickly did you progress? What happened next for
well,
you?
I was tested for perfect pitch rather early. I don't know, maybe I was 6 or something, and at that time I was learning very very quickly. So, but I was never really exploited as a prodigy.
You had a normal childhood and going out and playing in the
Absolutely,
street and
but
doing
my
stuff?
parents were always very very supportive.
Uh-huh. When did you start practicing the many hours a day that it requires to or have you not started yet?
Well, I guess from the very I had to from the very beginning.
Yeah. Was there one of your teachers either in Montreal and you went to Philadelphia and studied at Temple? Was there one teacher or one sort of aha moment or revelation or something that was a breakthrough for you in your training?
Well, I think that when all's said and done, all my teachers were really quite equally beneficial and
Mhm.
offered different things. Um, but I don't think there was any aha revelation,
Mhm. Mhm.
any really huge thing. It was a very very gradual thing.
The whole question about teachers and tyranny and psychological difficulties, movies like Tar, Masterclass, things of that. I wonder, you know, first of all, if you see these things and just roll your eyes at them, or is there some truth buried in them, and is there something kind of brutal about the drive to be at the top of your profession in a way?
It makes good cinema, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you made a movie about a relationship between a teacher and a student, with only good constructive things, and clean progress, I think most people would find it boring and predictable. So there has to be a certain element of drama, for
Mhm.
want of a better word.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
I,
but on the whole, all of my teachers were even tempered.
mhm.
I did have one lesson with a teacher who I will not name, who tried to decimate me in 2 hours. And
Mhm.
this was I was already 25 years old, so I'd been working for 20 years. And this person had a reputation for a destructive kind of behavior towards their students.
Kind of a boot camp sort of a thing, meant to really see if you could withstand the.
Well, I know what they do in boot camp, but this was more like crushing under the thumb kind of thing.
Mm.
More, much, much more. Uh,
Mm.
yeah.
You obviously didn't break, but did you bend a little in that?
No, because I only had one lesson with this person.
Okay,
I
therefore
would
not to be
rather have
named.
taken a bath of sulfuric acid than going back to this person.
Uh, let's talk about how you think about putting programs together. Um, what drives your decisions about that? I mean, the program here in San Francisco sounds like a sort of a mainstream program, but tell me about how you think about putting pieces together to speak to each other or to contrast or.
Well, I'm not much of a thematic sort of guy as far as programs are concerned. I mean, I know that a lot of people like concept programs or
Hmm.
concept
Hmm.
albums. I don't tend to think that way. I really go for maybe a piece or two that I especially want to showcase and share with the public, um, and then build a kind of a balanced evening around it.
Hmm.
As far as standard and non-standard repertoire, I try not to overload the program with non-standard repertoire simply because I think it would be a little bit too much for most audiences. And so
By
I like to mix the familiar and the unfamiliar.
by non-standard, do you mean
Let's
modern contemporary works?
more just more obscure.
More obscure from whatever era.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
a lot of the obscure things that I play are perfectly listenable.
yeah.
It's not. I mean, I don't want to assault audiences, of course.
Let me ask you a sort of related question about that. Joshua Barone had a piece in the New York Times the other day, which was also a little clickbaity. I don't know if you saw it. Did one generation of modernists ruin modern music for the public, many of whom still feel shy of anything that was written after Mahler almost? And I wonder about how you feel about. I mean, one thing that Barone says is that modern music isn't just one monolithic thing. I mean, there's everybody from,
Especially not
blue.
now. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Exactly now. I mean, people still think it's, serialism and 12-tone stuff that they're not going to be able to apprehend at all when you've got people like John Adams and Philip Glass and Missy Mazzoli and all these other sort of things. But I wonder, back to the, sort of the somewhat of the premise. Do you think that that kind contemporary music of that sort, serialism or related kind of music, is still difficult for the public? And how do you think around that issue?
well, I hope you won't mind if I give you a kind of a blanket statement, but what composers are trying to express all over from the earliest ages up to now really hasn't changed. It's the language that has.
Mm-hmm.
So my belief, my fantasy perhaps, is that if the message that the composer is trying to impart is genuine enough, then it doesn't matter whether it's expressed atonally or tonally or in whatever language.
Yeah. Well, as blanket statements goes, that's a pretty good one. I mean, I'm sort of thinking
I
in
would
the other direction about how, in a way, distant 14th century music is, and yet we can listen to Machaut or even back farther to Periton and Lane and all the,
the garden.
early, the early, we can do that. Um, let's talk a little bit about your new album called Found Object, Sound Object, which I guess you had a lot of trouble finding a name for. Uh,
Well, at first I wanted to call it mixtape, and then I came to my senses, and I was told to come to my senses also because it's a very overused word, and I guess also it would have only partly conveyed what the contents of the album are is actually.
well, let's talk about it. I mean, the first piece is by Frank Zappa, and the last piece is by you, and there's a big last piece is by you rather, and there's a lot of territory in between. It's really a wonderful album. I've listened to it twice now, and really really quite taken by it. What occasioned it? What got you started on this?
Well, I haven't done a lot of contemporary atonal music I don't have a lot of that in my catalog. But also there are a few pieces such as the Zappa, and also the one piece of mine that is at the end of the album, and also a couple of others. I didn't have any other outlet for them. I wouldn't have been able to combine them with anything else. So I thought a collection of recent pieces might have a chance to be attractive. There's also the piece by John Oswald called
Yes, that's great fun.
I'm glad you think so. I wasn't sure how it would be received, but it's yeah, what John did, just for the benefit of our viewers, is that he loves to transform pre-existing materials. So he wrote a piano piece which quotes 40 different things, 40 different excerpts from classical, jazz, and rock, and just layers them, and it performs a kind of a really very intricate collage. And it's really quite a challenge to perform and make it hold together, but I love it.
Well, I thought I was so clever. I said, there's the Moonlight Sonata right at the beginning, and there's Rite of Spring later on. And I thought, oh, there must be at least 6 or 7 allusions in here. When I read that there are 40, I was humbled and sure. I said, I got to listen again, I guess. Maybe much slower than that.
And when I performed it the first time, it was in Toronto, and he's also a Toronto resident. There was a contest actually with the audience as to
who could spot it. Fleur Elise was another, and there's a half a measure of Chopin, maybe, or maybe more than that.
The most hilarious part is when he combines the Beethoven first movement of 111 with the Linus and Lucy music from Peanuts. And it's very skillful, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, Mozart had his musical joke. Why not John Oswald? It's really quite wonderful. Zappa is somebody that maybe wouldn't have come to mind as someone who would live in the classical world, but in fact, he was a composer who wrote for the keyboard, but for a different kind of keyboard, a synesthesia keyboard, whatever it was called.
Yeah, synclavier, actually.
Synclavier, yeah.
It's an electronic sampling keyboard. So he wrote this piece in the early 80s called Ruth is Sleeping. It was the first piece that he wrote for the synclavier. Unfortunately, it's never appeared on recording in that form. But about 10 years later, when there were a bunch of concerts in Frankfurt with the Ensemble Moderne, it was a concert called The Yellow Shark, which was all performances of his instrumental music. For the occasion, he had an assistant transcribe the synclavier piece into a piece playable by either one piano four hands or two piano four hands. But it also happens to be playable by one person. So
is that something you decided, or was that known?
No. It's actually sanctioned by him.
It's a single piano score that you can play. Yeah.
Well, it's on 4 staves, really. So I really had to rewrite it completely. I didn't change a note, but I just had to make it easier to read. So I reduced it to 2 staves.
When those 6 short little cage pieces appear, there's something about them.
It's really one piece. So
it's one piece.
Yeah.
The six short segments. It feels wonderfully refreshing and coming in the midst of a lot of storm and drawing elsewhere on the album. They really are quite charming, those prepared piano pieces.
Yeah, well, the whole album was done in the studio except for the cage. It's a piece called The Perilous Night. I thought I had performed it in 2013 in the midst of a cage festival, a cage weekend organized by Michael Tilson Thomas at the World Symphony in the New World Symphony in Miami. And that was the first time I'd ever played prepared piano when I played that piece. And we were able to license that recording, so it's actually live.
Oh,
yeah!
Wow!
And I'm so glad that it's part of the CD.
Yeah, we're getting all sorts of questions coming in. They're coming in on my phone here. I'm just going to call up and see what's on folks' minds here. Just a minute. I'm going to take me a second to find them. Sorry for my technical ineptitude here.
Join the club.
Oh, God, that's a very long remark. I think I think maybe I won't be able to do that. Oh, here's one. How do you choose your encores?
Well, I usually have a kind of a bank that to draw upon. I mean, I have to consider how I'm feeling at the time. If
Mm-hmm.
I think the audience wants more, how many they want more, what kind of thing they might like to hear, how it should contrast or not contrast with the rest of the program, a whole bunch of factors. But I have to confess that there have been times, and this is full disclosure here, where I have sat down after they asked for an encore, and I'm still deciding.
Well, I was just going to ask you that because it feels like a piece of theater sometime when it seems to just come over a pianist at the moment. But that actually happens, doesn't it? For at least for you, maybe for many. Hmm.
It does.
Hmm.
It's been fun to play in places like China and Korea because they are very, very hungry for encores.
Ah,
The the audiences are there are very young. I have to say, a lot of students, which really delights me, you know, because I love the fact that they're so eager. Uh, but sometimes, you know, when there's one encore after another, and the more I do them, you know, when I sit down, they go wow, like these whoops, you know, that and the first time that happened to me, I was visibly startled, you know, 'cause I'd never had that before.
when you say they demand encores, how many are we talking about sometimes?
I recently did six.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it
What
could be
what
three, four, five, six. Yeah.
uh-huh. What are some of your what are some of the ones that you are particularly fond of?
The Debussy Reflections in the Water and
Mm,
the called General Levine. I have a little piece, early piece of mine called Music Box, which I always like to do. I'm preparing right now a CD of the music of a Brazilian composer who's very very well known over there. He's a major figure, but almost not known here, except maybe to guitarists. His name is Radames Nhatali.
mm,
That's Gnattali.
uh, uh.
And, he's written a lot of attractive stuff for piano. So I've trotted out a couple of those recently as encores.
I mean, aside from being, I take it a younger audience than you encounter in the States or in Europe or whatever, are there are there characteristic differences to audiences as you travel around? Is there a certain kind of a national identity to audiences or a city quality or or
No, I don't think so. I mean, you can have two different concert series in the same town anywhere on the globe,
mm,
and they will have different ways of listening, different traditions, perhaps, of reacting to artists. I've tried to generalize that, but I really can't.
mm, mm. Let me ask you a question about composing, which you've done a good deal of, in
Mhm.
mostly for solo piano, but not only that, and including several pieces for player piano, which I now have to ask you, how the hell do you do that?
Well, if I can backtrack a little bit, I my grandparents on my dad's side had a player piano, so that's
Mm,
how I initially got acquainted with the whole medium. And
ah,
as a kid, even as a kid, I loved to pedal, pump the pedals of things and make the rolls play. To me,
mm,
it was a great fun. Um, and somewhat later, around 1979 or 80, I discovered the player piano music of Conlon Nancarrow,
mhm.
a composer who ended up living in Mexico. And that was a life changer for me because it opened up a whole new world of listening and sound. So it didn't take long before I started to want to exploit the medium myself and see what I could do with it.
Mm.
Um, and I wrote the three pieces in the 90s, and I really haven't had the urge to do that anymore, you know. But
Mm.
there were very very interesting experiences.
Mm. Well, let me ask you about how. composing and performing interact, which is to say, as a performer, are you writing music that you long to play, or are you challenging yourself, or
Well, that,
both?
that was true at first. When I started composing, as soon as I w was able to produce things that people would actually want to listen to, and because there was a lot of time before that where I was what I was running was just not very good. Um, the aim initially was for me to have something to play of myself,
Mhm.
but I am much more interested now in writing for others. And I've had at least two or three pieces which were not premiered by me recently, so I'm
Uh-huh.
very delighted about that.
Well, that's very gratifying, isn't it?
Well, the piece that's on this found objects, sound
Hmm.
objects CD
Hmm.
that's coming out just now,
Hmm.
it's called the Hexen Sabbat, which means witch's Sabbath.
Hmm.
That was actually written for someone else to premiere. It was a young Israeli pianist named Yoav Levanon,
Ah, uh-huh.
and he did a very good job of it. It's on Medici TV actually.
Let me ask you sort of the obverse of that question. Does composing make you a different kind of performer in some ways?
Oh yes,
Mhm.
I personally think that it's indispensable because it helps you to understand so much more about the works that you play.
Mhm.
Because you can be at least a step closer to understanding the state of mind of the composer whose works you perform. Because
Mhm.
it's very easy to take music for granted and
Mhm.
not care a whit about how it was put together or created. So being a composer at least makes you appreciate that a little more.
Yeah, I can imagine that's true. How has the digital revolution affected your life as a musician, as a composer, as a performer?
In what sense?
Well, I mean, do you compose do you compose using a computer at all, or do you compose at the keyboard, or
I still write the old steam powered way
wow,
with a
wow.
pen, with a pen
Uh-huh.
and liquid paper.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
And anything I've had printed and I've had it done by somebody else.
Another question coming in. Oh, I just lost it again. I'm really hopeless. Do you expect to record a full Beethoven sonata cycle? Someone is asking.
Let me see how many of them are on the market. I don't know by any stretch of the imagination how I could add to that canon in any kind of significant way. Also, because I'm not equally fond of them all.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if I were utterly convinced by all 32, and if I felt like I could make a significant contribution, then I would do it.
Yeah, we
But
we we don't.
it's definitely not a priority. Far
Yeah,
from it.
yeah, we don't need to hear the early, juvenile symphonies of Mozart so much, other than just as a curiosity.
However, I would love the opportunity to record the concerti, though, the five
The
concerti.
the five concerti. You've not done that?
No.
Let me ask you about coming into town to play a concerto, as you're doing in Los Angeles next week, playing the Brahms first. Am I right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
When you come to town, and how much rehearsal time do you have? How much preparation time? How much integration with the orchestra can happen in rehearsal, whatever that rehearsal time might be? And are
It's really
there?
usually a good sizable rehearsal at first and then a dress rehearsal.
Mhm.
For standard repertoire, there's not generally anything more needed than that.
Mhm.
If it's a new work, or if it's a work that's unfamiliar to the orchestra, maybe it's desirable to schedule an extra rehearsal.
Mhm.
Of course, you know, uh, orchestra's budget permitting.
Mhm. Right. Right. Well, speaking of that, I mean, the the decimation of funding for the arts, and the difficulties of audiences not returning after the pandemic. I mean, people have been, pronouncing the end of classical music and other art forms for decades. But I wonder if you feel we're in a sort of an inflection point here that something fundamental has shifted.
Well, perhaps. I mean, the lack of the diminishing funding is certainly a worry, but I see audiences. I still see full halls,
Mhm.
and I still feel an eagerness to come to concerts. So uh, I would like to say, at least at this point, that I'm not too worried.
You're not too pessimistic about what's to come.
No, I may be naive, but I hope not.
Mhm. Um, Talk a little bit about chamber music, if you would, about what that the delight of playing chamber music is and
It is a
what
delight.
is it?
What can I?
Yeah.
What else can I
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the repertoire is just amazing. I don't have to tell you that, but it is also the chance to collaborate with fellow musicians. I mean, I love to go to festivals whenever I can. Um, I Over the last few years, I amused myself by drawing up a list of every single professional musician I've ever met in my life.
Oh my goodness.
All of those I could remember, and I'm really over 1,600 by now. But also, I made a list of every string quartet that I played with because I love to play piano quintets, especially. And I think right now the number is 32.
Wait a minute. You're going to have to slow that down and say that again for me.
I think I have played with something like 32 string quartets in my life. 32
Wow.
string quartets.
Wow. Amazing. Some of which probably don't exist anymore at this point.
A few, but
Uh-huh.
most of them have marshaled on.
Uh-huh. You've won some competitions, you've won plenty of awards. I wonder what you think about music competitions and are they a healthy thing? Are they too
Well,
emphasized in careers? Do they?
uh, they're I think their greatest value is for young musicians to be heard and seen
Mhm.
and to be noticed.
Mhm.
Um, the adjudication process is often, well, it's flawed, of course, um, and well, that's it basically. I mean, we are certainly fortunately in an age where young musicians can uh, be seen more easily than they were before. I mean, all you have to do is to put a video of yourself online, and you know people can see it. It was unthinkable when I was growing up and when I was studying. Uh, the downside, of course, is that there's been a total proliferation of musicians, of young musicians, wanting all wanting a major career, and of course there are going to be disappointments.
Mhm.
Uh, but competitions, uh, I think there are probably too many of them,
Mhm.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult to talk about really, because I see a lot of worthy talents being denied a first prize, and that's really the most distressing thing about that whole thing.
Do you do some teaching and coaching or much of it in a regular way or?
Yes. This is my fifth year as a faculty member at the New England Conservatory,
Mhm.
and I've given quite a few master classes recently. I came to master classes actually, and also teaching very late in life. It's really only within the last maybe 7 or 8 years that I've been teaching at all.
Mhm.
It was partly out of uh, a real respect and awe of the teaching profession. I mean, I really didn't think that I could give that much, by teaching. But I've since changed my mind.
And what have you discovered about yourself as a teacher and
That you can learn from anything.
uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are you gobsmacked by the talent that's out there?
Oh, some of what these young people can do digitally at least, and also interpretively, is quite astonishing. Yes.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm. Is there a pattern to what young pianists are able to do or that they're neglecting in some way that they're when we talked earlier about, music is a language of expressing eternal emotions and eternal human experience.
Mhm.
Um, when you're young, you don't maybe necessarily have that, fully formed. I wonder if there are things about
Well,
young
because I mean,
musicians that you
I think
see.
it's a natural thing at that age to want to distinguish yourself from the pack. So
Mhm.
and to show your prowess. I mean, it was my case too. I mean, I have to admit it. I mean, even though I didn't think so at the time. So you go to play the most demanding things that there are, and that's why you always hear the same things. I mean, I wish that young people would lay off Stravinsky's Petrushka movements, for example, or let the Rachmaninoff third go for a while. Although that's unrealistic, because I mean, both of these pieces are absolutely transcendently wonderful,
Yeah.
and so is something like the Mussorgsky pictures. But
Mm, mm.
you hear them all the time, and they're getting
Well,
diluted.
there's 70,000 pieces waiting to be discovered somewhere in your friend's collation of all
A
those.
lot of them are unfortunately being junk, and some of them forgettable, some of them period pieces that really wouldn't survive today. But there are still good nuggets to be presented
Mm,
uh,
mm.
in front of the public.
On the other side, there are occasionally pieces that just outlive I think you said it of the Balakir of Islame. Is that how you pronounce it?
I mean, yeah.
That's a piece that you've permanently banned, you said in this interview.
Um, well, I mean, again, it's marvelous.
Hmm?
It's wonderfully exuberant. I just wish it weren't so difficult.
Hmm. You'd like to do a Beethoven concerto cycle. What other things are in your sights
Well,
for
I
the
would
years
like to
ahead?
record one. I've already done it
Yes, I
three
meant I
times.
meant record. Yes, I'm sure you played them all. Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. What other things would you like to do? What other mountains to climb for you? Either recording and performing, both composing.
I've been very interested recently in the piano music of Mieczysław Weinberg.
Mm,
Has had quite a resurgence in the last 20, 25 years. He was a Pole, but who emigrated to Russia, and he spent most of his life there. He was extremely prolific, but the music is really fascinating in that it's very influenced by someone like, people like Shostakovich and
mm,
Prokofiev. I mean, he knew Shostakovich very well; they were
mm,
best pals.
mm,
But he's also a very interesting voice on his own, and I was not aware of the Weinberg boom when it really happened. So I
mm,
really discovered the music on my own, and
mm,
it was really startling to me
mm.
in the best way.
Where's the place that people should start listening? What's a good Weinberg starter?
God, I mean, I have so much of his production to catch up on. I mean,
Mm,
I think there's 21 symphonies, 17 string quartets,
wow.
seven piano sonatas,
Mm,
a lot of chamber music, and some operas as well. So there's a lot. There's just a lot.
mm,
We're fortunate that he left us so much.
mm. We're moments from running out of time. This has been absolutely wonderful, but I want to ask you one last question. Leave it maybe for our budding pianists in the audience, or for anyone who wonders about how music gets made, and that's the what you call slow practice. I wonder if you
Mhm.
just describe why that's so important and what
Well,
happens.
it's a way of consolidating yourself pianistically and also mentally. Because if you practice slowly, if you always practice fast, there's a lot of details that you're going to be missing.
Mm,
And the I really think that pianistically, your feeling for such and such a passage is going to crumble over time.
mm,
So if you start practicing slowly, uh, you don't have to do it constantly, of course, but discipline yourself in really practicing slowly
mm,
and deep into the keys. And it also helps you hear better. And it's sort of it gives you a reacquaintance with uh, with how music is really supposed to sound
mm, mm.
fundamentally. So I find it extremely valuable.
Marc-André Hamelin, thank you so much for sharing this time and your insights. It's been just delightful and instructive and fun and all good things. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a joy.
But likewise.